Did the media claim their first major Trump cabinet scalp? Well, let's take a look at what happened today. Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, is out. You've probably heard or seen that headline, but he's not really out. So there's really not a scalp taken here, is there? He has been moved, reassigned, you could say. Mike Waltz, a good guy, a bit of an interventionist for my foreign policy taste, a little too into the Ukraine, Russia, we have to do everything to help Ukraine win side of things, but a good man. And from what I can tell, and he has been moved from national security advisor to U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. It's going to be a good gig for Mike. You know, he was a congressman not too far from where I am here in South Florida, and now he'll be able to get a huge. I haven't been to the ambassador's residence in New York. My understanding is like a giant, very fancy apartment for free, and a staff to run it, and all kinds of other perks. And he'll throw cocktail parties and go to the UN and give speeches about how the UN is worthless, which is the best thing a U.S. ambassador can do for the most part. So, yeah, that's what he'll be doing. It's a high profile position. It's not really something where you're going to change the world, to put it mildly, but it's still a senior position in the Trump administration. So he hasn't been exiled. He has not been cast out. He has been reassigned. And I think you could argue there are some people who, well, national security advisor, you're very close to the center of power, to the White House, day in and day out. So most people are going to choose that, but it's still a very good job right now for Mike Waltz to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So that's what they've been trying to push for this whole time in the media. They want to get somebody from Trump world ousted, and they've really been hoping that it would be Pete Hegseth. He is the one that they want more than any other. But one thing that I believe doesn't get talked about nearly enough, I'm sure it's very frustrating for the Democrats and the Democrat media, that they have a much more squared away Trump administration with staff and staffing than the first time around. So they aren't able to just watch as the clown car turns into a Royal Rumble of people who had no business, like Scaramucci and others, no business being in any White House. That's changed this time around. You've got very good people, and maybe some of those positions will change, like what we just saw, but I don't think you're going to have any. You certainly haven't had, and I don't think you will have anything near the learning on the job situation of 2016. I think that's very frustrating to Democrats. I think that they were hoping that there would be a lot of tumult with the Trump nominees for the cabinet positions, and that they would come in, they would mess things up. And no, not this time around. And they've realized they have to take an iron fist approach. If you're at a DOD facility and you refuse to put up a picture of Trump and a picture of Secretary Hegseth, you should be relieved of duty, or you should be fired. Insubordination is unacceptable. First time around, State Department, DOD, bunch of places, I think there were deep state leave-behinds who thought it was their job to slow down everything Trump-related. This time around, they're still trying, but it's a lot harder because the Trump team has come out swinging on this stuff and has absolutely no interest in playing games with people who are trying to thwart the agenda. So it was a big headline this morning. Oh, national security advisor's out. But I think Trump has also learned you can't give this Democrat Party, you can't give the left what they want, which is high-level firings, high-level departures from the Trump cabinet, because it's just chumming the water for sharks or piranhas or however you want to take the metaphor here. You're just chumming the waters, and that's a terrible idea. So moving somebody, okay, we'll find something that's more fitting for Mike Waltz's skill set. But I think that this is also indicative of some of the high-level arguments right now within the Pentagon and within the national security sphere about whether there should be a strike on Iran. Now, would it be an Israeli strike, an American-backed Israel, or American backing of an Israeli strike? A lot of variations on this, but should we use force to destroy the Iranian nuclear reactors? And my position on this is we should do everything possible not to be involved in another Mideast war. That's my priorities. We don't want to get involved in another Mideast war. So if there's a way to do a strike that is clean enough, or that the Israelis think will be clean enough that that's not going to happen, well, maybe. But of course, there's that concern that you think you pull that off, and then somehow things get far more complicated, as they always have in Middle East, in the Middle East in recent years. So I just don't want to see Americans dying in the Middle East for any reason right now, for any of the things that are being talked about. And I think that, Israel and Iran are going to have more of a showdown here, and it's certainly more of a national security concern for them than it is for us. So that's where the argument is, though, within the Pentagon. That's where I think there's a lot of back and forth at the top levels. And Mike Waltz is we got to back Ukraine to the hilt. We've got to do anything, including back Israel if they strike Iran, and maybe give them the green light to do it. And I think that was part of the tension. I don't really think it was the Signal Gate story. That wasn't great, but I don't think that was what resulted in this. I think there's been tension at a high level. All right, our sponsor here is Paradigm Press. Some nations have a fund called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Japan, Norway, Saudi Arabia, just to name a few. It allows citizens of that country to benefit after the nation invests in the development of an asset or assets. The development of oil is one such asset. Our nation has never had one, though several states do, like Texas, for example. But in America's case, there are more than a few people who believe our nation has an asset worth $150 trillion buried on American soil that could be the basis for such a sovereign wealth fund. This endowment, so to speak, is so large it could pay off our national debt 4 times over. Why has it been kept secret for so long? Well, thanks to a Supreme Court decision, President Trump could soon release it to the public. Jim Rickards, former advisor to the White House and Federal Reserve, says if you're over 50, this could be your best chance to build lasting wealth from a once-in-a-century event. To hear more of Jim's thinking, go online to birthright2025.com. He's right. It could make President Trump the most popular president in history and help millions of investors retire wealthy. Go to birthright2025.com to get the details. Free of charge, paid for by Paradigm Press. That's birthright2025.com. Go check that out. So now we can talk about immigration a little bit. And this is quite a moment here with Tom Homan.
So the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
Yeah. He has asked, why don't you just start arresting people who are obstructing in sanctuary cities? And he basically says, just wait and see what we got. We're just getting started. This is a critical fight for the country, for the future of this nation. If the Democrats can flood the country with illegals and we can't even get rid of the most recent flood over 4 years of a Republican presidency, it's all over. The country is on a glide path into the side of a mountain. It's not really going to be America anymore. It's going to be some place where the third world shows up and demands, their piece of the pie, and thinks that they're entitled to your labor, your work, the country that you and our ancestors built. They're going to say, well, we're here now. We came illegally, and we want what we want. And when there's enough of them, they'll have political power, and they'll just turn this into a spoils system. And there'll be a lot of tribalism, and people from different ethnicities who have arrived here are going to want to help their group within the country and not think of themselves as Americans necessarily first. This is all the stuff that's going to come if we don't have secure borders. We have to be able to control who comes here. And that's where the Biden administration, the complete and utter abdication of any sense that we have a border. And they did this on purpose. I have to always just remind everyone they weren't overwhelmed. It wasn't too challenging. They wanted the border wide open, and they got what they wanted. Well, as we see, that has had horrible results for the country. The expenses that are being run up in cities like New York, billions and billions of dollars. You have illegals, thousands and thousands of illegals among the millions who came in, who are murderers, who are rapists, who are very bad people. A lot of countries all over the world were not sending us their best. And you see there are people within the system who have been supporting all of this. They want this, and I mean Democrats who are not just in the media, but in government itself, in the judiciary, in law enforcement, elected branches of elected office. They want this to continue. In fact, they'll do everything they can to get in the way of anyone who is trying to deport illegals, which is why they've all rallied around this Abrego Garcia guy. The whole game here is just talk about due process. You say, hold on a second. He's an illegal. He's gone. So we're going to bring him back here so he can have more process to have him sent out of the country again? That's crazy. And is this what it's going to be like for everybody that they try to deport out of the country? We're going to have to hear this whining. Oh, but we should have had another, there's some judge that stopped this. We should have had another person sit down with them and talk about the lies about the asylum they're seeking or whatever it may be. No, it's enough is enough. And, I can see that the Trump administration has requested that the Supreme Court terminate protected status for 600,000 Venezuelans. Yeah, it's called temporary protected status for a reason. It's supposed to be temporary. Time to go home. Time to go. We're a very nice country, we Americans. We are very nice people. And we gave safe harbor to a lot of people while their countries were a mess. Because this country, as much as it has problems, is awesome, and a lot of other countries are crappy. We gave them safe harbor here, but now it's time to go home, maybe fix that country that you came from. Things have quieted down a bit. In this case, that would be Venezuela. Socialism has a cost, everybody. Destroys countries all the time throughout history, but people still get sold on it, and then they want to bring their socialism here after it destroys their home country. Sorry, no, not interested. Not interested. Now, I know there are people who come here legally who are refugees from whether it's communism or the Soviet Union who are great, but that's not temporary protected status. That's a different process. Temporary protected status is temporary. Time to go home for other people who have come here in this program. It's not supposed to be an end run on our entire immigration system. So I am hoping that the administration prevails on this one. I think it is likely that they will. Our sponsor here is Preborn. If you want to donate to a really worthy cause, look no further than Preborn. You'd be amazed at what $28 can do when you donate it to support their mission. Put that money aside. Make a donation to Preborn if you can. Their clinics help across the country. When it comes to women who have a crisis pregnancy, Preborn welcomes them in, gives them a free ultrasound, and says, hey, look, we want to introduce you to your baby. Because when you see that tiny heartbeat, it's going to be so much easier for you to make the decision to give your baby life. And so Preborn does this with care, compassion, and love for women and for that unborn child. And they've saved hundreds of thousands of babies while this organization has been going for decades. 20 years' time, 300,000 plus babies saved. Please consider making a donation today. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or go to preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn. All right, that's it for today, team. Shields high.